It is perhaps the ultimate paradox of modern professional football. How can a quarterback who has played on the game's grandest stages, hoisted the championship trophy, and stacked up staggering numbers simultaneously find himself treated like an outcast by his own peers? When the annual player voted rankings dropped and flashed a shocking number 56 next to his name, the sports world collectively blinked. 56th best player in the entire league. Below rookies who have barely tasted the speed of Sunday afternoon and buried beneath a mountain of disrespect despite a resume that makes most signal callers green with envy. How does a proven winner, a dual-threat nightmare who has routinely outplayed the consensus golden boys of the sport, plummet into the shadows of public perception? More importantly, is this a sign of an empire crumbling, or is it the ultimate fuel for a violent, unforgiving revenge tour? Before we pull back the curtain on the whispers, the anonymous slander, and a massive tactical shift coming to Philadelphia, hit that subscribe button if you want the absolute fastest, unfiltered NFL truth on the planet. What follows is not just a story about a ranking. It is a psychological thriller about locker room politics, toxic ego management, a brutal coaching carousel, and a franchise standing on a razor's edge. The anatomy of disrespect. To understand the absurdity of a number 56, you have to look past the box scores and examine the chaotic reality of what transpired behind closed doors. Last year was labeled a down season by the talking heads. Yet in that very same down season, amidst an offensive scheme so utterly inept and devoid of rhythm that it felt like watching a car drive with the parking brake on, the numbers tell a completely different story. 33 touchdowns, just 6 interceptions, an 11-win campaign. Think about that for a second. 33 times, the ball ended up in the opponent's end zone because of his decisions, while he protected it better than almost anyone else in the league. 4 of those 6 interceptions came in a single, catastrophic afternoon against the Chargers, a game where wide receiver support completely evaporated and teammates actively sold out the game plan. Strip away that one anomalous afternoon, and you are looking at masterclass in damage control. Yet, the narrative machine turned against him. Anonymous sources leaked whispers to the media, painting a picture of a rigid leader who supposedly alienated his locker room, demanded too much control, and refused to adapt. Here is the twist that most casual fans miss. Those ranking votes did not come from media members chasing clicks. They came from the players. The very men who line up across from him, feel his competitive fire, and understand the grueling physical toll of the game, decided to slot him 56th. Or perhaps dig a little deeper into that ballot, and you will find a hidden compliment. Even at 56th, his peers ranked him ahead of star wide receiver A.J. Brown. That single placement tells a story of its own, one of internal hierarchy, friction, and a star-studded offense pulling in entirely different directions. The legacy of the underdog. To truly know why the football world struggles to categorize this player, you have to trace his roots far beyond the bright lights of the NFL. Long before he was orchestrating game-winning drives on football's biggest stages, he was defying gravity as an ultimate underdog. Picture a high school football field deep in the heart of Texas. A powerhouse program, a juggernaut that everyone expected to obliterate any opponent in its path, was scheduled to roll right over a heavily outmatched local high school. Nobody gave the underdog a single prayer. The odds were entirely insurmountable. Yet under the Friday night lights, a young quarterback stepped onto the turf with ice water in his veins. He didn't blink. He didn't back down. He orchestrated a massive, earth-shaking upset that sent shockwaves through the region. That resilience wasn't a one-time miracle. It became the signature blueprint of a nomadic football journey. From the high-pressure fishbowl of Alabama to the high-flying offense of Oklahoma, and finally into the unforgiving, hypercritical spotlight of Philadelphia, the pattern remained identical. Wherever he went, the noise followed him, but so did the victories. He took his team to the Super Bowl and went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes, outplaying the consensus face of the league in several key metrics on the biggest stage Earth has to offer. He has stood tall against elite competition like Josh Allen, while watching other superstar quarterbacks melt down under the crushing weight of the pressure cooker. So why does he remain so easy for critics to hate? If he wore the jersey of a small-market franchise with zero expectations, he would be celebrated as a folk hero. But in a town where the leash is shorter than almost anywhere else in professional sports, a city that once chewed up and spit out a Super Bowl-winning head coach just a couple of years after hoisting the Lombardi Trophy, nothing short of perfection is accepted. The chaos of the carousel football is the ultimate team sport. But at the quarterback position, success requires a fragile ecosystem of consistency. Imagine waking up every single year of your professional life, having to learn an entirely new language, new terminology, new cadence, new route concepts, and a completely different voice barking instructions into your headset through the speaker. Over a stretch of 11 years dating back to his college days, this quarterback has been forced to adapt to 11 different offensive play callers. Let that sink in for a moment. Compare that to the gold standard of the modern era, who has been calling plays for Patrick Mahomes his entire career. Andy Reid, arguably the greatest offensive mind in the history of the sport, providing a security blanket of absolute continuity. Now look at the revolving door in Philadelphia. Within a 6-year span alone, the coordinator position spun through constant turnover. When stability was present, the results were historic. When the carousel spun out of control, featuring coordinators whose play calling felt utterly devoid of feel or rhythm, the offense stalled. And then, there was the human element inside the locker room. The turbulent presence of a star wide receiver who demanded the football on nearly every single snap, creating a dark cloud of negative energy when his targets dipped. When an offense is forced to bend over backward to force feed a malcontent, the entire unit suffers. The product becomes watered down, predictable, and fragile. As legendary quarterback Tom Brady recently noted from firsthand wisdom, carrying the emotional baggage of a wide receiver who acts as a constant malcontent drains massive amounts of time, energy, and mental capital from the entire team. A clean slate and a dangerous weapon, everything changes now. The dark cloud has lifted. The offensive coaching room has undergone a radical transformation with a brand new system designed to maximize efficiency, heavy on purposeful motions, shifts, and an outside zone running scheme that promises to unlock the full potential of the offensive line. For veterans like Lane Johnson, who recently admitted to long envying this exact style of blocking scheme, the assistants arriving up front is a massive sigh of relief. The interior linemen, after battling through injuries and playing as physical shells of themselves last season, are healthy, re-energized, and ready to re-establish dominance in the trenches. Without the exhausting pressure of forcing targets to a disgruntled superstar, this offense is pivoting to a democratic, well-rounded attack by committee. Defenses can no longer zero in on a single focal point. They have to account for multiple weapons, deep threat capabilities, and a lethal running game anchored by Saquon Barkley. If you think this passing attack is going to take a step back without its former primary target, you haven't been paying attention to the tape. Playmakers who thrive away from the spotlight are stepping into expanded roles, and the field is opening up across the middle, an area where efficiency metrics skyrocket when given actual scheme opportunities. The ultimate prove-it year, the stage, is set for a cinematic collision between doubt and destiny. The roster surrounding him is arguably one of the top 2 or 3 talent pools in the entire National Football League. The defense is projected to be a suffocating top-tier unit. The offensive line has answers, the playbook has clarity, and the noise from the doubters has reached a deafening crescendo. There are no excuses left. The front office in Philadelphia is famously ruthless. They handed out massive extensions in the past and moved on without hesitation when production didn't match the standard. If this upcoming campaign ends in stagnation, the Sharks will begin to circle, and the whispers of a quarterback transition will turn into reality. Conversely, if he does what he has done his entire life, absorb the disrespect, silence the critics, and guide this powerhouse deep into January, the market will demand a massive correction, and the price of the brick will skyrocket once again. He doesn't court controversy. He doesn't chase viral sound bites or court media drama. He keeps his head down, writes children's books off the field, and treats every snap like a referendum on his existence. When you look at the landscape of professional football, very few players possess the mental armor required to survive the meat grinder of the modern NFL while carrying the weight of a championship city on their shoulders. The ranking says 56. The history books say something entirely different. And as the autumn air approaches and the lights turn blindingly bright once more, the rest of the league is about to find out just how dangerous a dismissed champion can be when he finally has everything he needs to finish the job.